Hello. Today we are making a recording on the logistics involved in getting this job done, which would cover things like how we make time, um, that is, vacation, how we take care of sustenance, food, water on raw land as we are working. The third would be supply chain, where we store materials. Um, Also, bear in mind this is raw land, there is no power, no water, no sewer, no storage facilities as we are working, which is why all this is important. And finally, how we are going to record,
And track
track,
what we're doing.
so media, both photos and videos. If you're wondering, we are sitting, the barn you see behind is part of the
Agricultural
agricultural
outreach.
agricultural history farm park located in Durwood. This is an early 20th century farm and it's preserved uh, like an original farm. It's a 455-acre site, and there are a lot of programs here which we hope to get involved in to understand how to grow vegetables, fruits, and operate beehives. Because remember, we are both city folks, engineers who without a green thumb. And if you hear any noises, it's because there are a couple of pigs in the background. So, for starters, vacation.
Well, what we'd just want to talk about is just how long we think the job's going to take, how many days or hours we think we're going to be spending, that we have to be physically on the land working, and then how to manage that between our time. Because I work a full-time job, I travel quite a lot. Grisha's just started her own consulting work, and that's starting to pick up. So it's how we balance the needs of the project to keep that moving forward, and also to keep not compromising our work from that perspective. So when we looked at the job, we estimated that it would take roughly 90 days to do, and that was just to get the outer perimeter walls up at this stage. So
Yeah, and we are talking about just the cob walls because that's the bulk of the job which has to be done within a certain time. Remember, there is other work like getting the ground prepared, clearing the ground, the vegetable garden, planting fruit trees. All of that would be done over the next year, over long weekends or even weekends. But the complicated part is the actual construction of the core house,
yeah,
which is what we are going
which we're
talking
planning
about.
to try and do that in 2018, and realistically starting March, April time in 2018 once the weather picks up out of winter. So for the start of 2018, leading up to that point, we'll hopefully have worked out all the practical materials delivery. During winter, we can be doing things like building window frames, stuff that can be done indoors without needing to be on the building to do it, or out in the countryside doing it. And then so then to actually find time. So as I say, we're thinking about 90 days to do the work just by ourselves. It's assuming it's just the two of us doing it, which is a reasonable assumption. And then, so with a combination of, if we just took long weekends to do it, and put our from Friday through Sunday, then that, to do 90 days worth of work would be 30 long weekends. So we're also thinking of bringing into that 2 weeks off, 2 continuous weeks once we've built up, built up enough momentum, then two solid weeks working on it, which will take out 14 days from that 90 days, and so we'll be down to about 15 long weekends and 2 continuous weeks, basically doing it that way.
Yeah. Also, bear in mind the construction, the cob and straw bale construction has to be done during the warm months. And once that's done, we could start doing roofing and plastering, but we also have to give time for the house to dry. So it'll definitely be the year after by the time we do some of that work. Again, there will be changes in the schedule depending on if we have to cover up the house with the roof, depending on how permits go, how the weather goes. But this is a rough idea. And so if these things spill over, we will be spending the next year's summer also in the core construction. But we are hoping by 2019 winter, we are working on things like cleaning up, plastering, and roofing for sure.
Yeah, and getting interiors done.
Yes.
The problem is we can't also leave the walls, particularly straw walls, exposed for a long period of time. If they get wet, the straw can rot, it can catch fire. There's a number of things that can happen. So there's a kind of mix of constraints happening that we have to balance into each other between allowing the building to dry, but also making sure we cover it up and protect it during winter months before we get the roof fully on and the building, if you like, sealed from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, we will make another video where we are talking about our overall schedule of all the things we are doing. So you'll get a better idea of where this core building slots into all the rest of the preparation work which goes on. And like we mentioned, making time for that is easier because the other jobs are small, relatively small tasks which can be done over weekends and at home over the next 12 to 18 months. So switching to the next
Comfort.
item, which is comfort. You wouldn't think much about it, but like I said, bear in mind this is land with no water, no power, and no septic. And the way permits work is you can get a permit for well separately and get the well dug, but you cannot get power connections or permits for power connections or septic until you submit your plans for the house, and all the permits for power, septic, and the house construction is given in one shot. Your time starts and you have 1 year to complete the job. We are obviously not going to finish it in 1 year, and if we don't make any significant progress, we'll have to reapply for the permits. What we are hoping is, since we are actively going to be working on it, any significant progress would mean all we need to do is extend our permit by a year. But what all this boils down to is we would have well water by early next year, but meanwhile, um, uh, we will have to carry water with us for drinking purposes when we are clearing the land. Once we have the well in, we can use it for building our test site next year. And we'll also have to arrange for a generator, which is gas powered, in order to pump the water out of the well. For power, the only major items we need charging are our laptops, cell phones. We also have a camping lamp, which is USB powered. We are going to be purchasing a camcorder, and one of the criteria is that it can be charged via USB. And all this can be charged because we have a solar panel which has been tested and works out fine. Everything else, which would include tractor, power tools, would have to be gas powered. So we cannot buy electrical powered items. Water, septic, as far as a restroom is concerned, we can get what's called chemical toilets for under $100, and we'll be using that and bringing that back home to empty out periodically. Again, there'll be separate talks, videos, and blogs about equipment and things we are using. What's the third? Supply chain. How do we store materials? We could put a little shed to store things, but there is a catch-22 situation where we, we could put accessory buildings which are less than 150 square feet in Frederick County without permits, but they have to be accessory buildings, in the sense we need to have a primary residence on the lot before we can put that, which means we probably cannot have a shed unless we apply for permits separately, and it might not be worth our while. So the tractor would be chained up. All other power tools can be carried back with us to our house when we finish work.
Or if we
What's
could
the
have
other
some
thing?
kind of secure lockbox to store things like fuel on site and some essential things that we don't necessarily want to carry back and forth for whatever reason.
Yeah, an
We want to put
enclosed
some
steel
stuff,
box for
like
putting in
like
flammable
a
stuff.
steel job box of
Yeah,
some kind. And we'll just,
and
there's enough space in the land to have that reasonably securely hidden,
yeah,
and so it's out of the way. but we can still access it. So we're likely to do it that way. The other logistics part is where we store building materials on site. By and large, what we need are sand, obviously, sand or gravel, and also um,
Clay,
clay mud. And
and
we're
straw.
also going to be, yeah, there's straw as well. But there's also going to be things like um, stuff we're using for the garden, like mulches and these kind of things. So we're looking at the area of the land that we can put aside just for storage, and this may change over time. So we may start off storing things in one area where it suits, and then gradually moving that around as we get through the different phases of the project from that side.
Yeah, all of these items can be stored as big piles, with the exception of straw piles right on the ground, provided we cover them with tarps to prevent too much material being blown away in the wind. The exception is straw, which will have to be kept extremely dry. So we will be working on timing delivery of the straw from one of the nearby farms, with the hope that they would hold on to it till we actually need it. And when we do need it, we'll be getting pallets to raise the straw bales off the ground and then cover them with tarps. And we also have to keep in mind as to where we make these piles. You do not want them to be unsightly as the building progresses. You want it to be accessible easily. So uh, we are hoping to put it along the stone wall, which borders the land at this point. But again, that would change. And you will see that in our videos as we make deliveries. And
I don't think you would be there.
well,
Because that'll block the way up, won't it?
no, it won't. There's plenty. It's really extremely
Side,
wide. Yeah.
you don't want
And
it to fall out over the road though behind.
oh no. And what's the last one?
Food.
No, food. Food.
Okay.
Yeah, we plan to take water with us, drinking water. And remember, even when we pump the well, we have to get the water treated in the well before we drink it. And the problem with the county is they don't treat the water, they
They
don't
don't
test
test
the
it.
water till it's time to make the connections to the house. So what we will have to do is send it to a local lab to get it tested privately for our assurance. But water has to be treated, and in the interim, we'll be carrying drinking water with us till all that is sorted out. Food, we'll be carrying a lot of fruits, sandwiches, and we are collecting coupons for things like Subway and pizza. Remember, we have to cut costs, and at the same time, we can't be spending too much time cooking. And we can store things in a box north facing so it doesn't spoil easily in the warm months. We also know that there is a small town called Smithsburg, just 10 or 15 minutes from there. So we can always go there to grab a sandwich and use the restrooms and take a break in the middle of the day. Verizon signal is very good. That was one of the criteria for getting access to the land, which means we are not going to be disconnected and we can reach out to work, colleagues, help, web browse for information while we are on the land without problems. What's the last one? Oh, recording. We will be recording our work, and it'll be a few photographs every day. But the big thing we hope to do is place a camcorder which records
The site, the
continuously.
area of the site we're working on. So we've
Yeah,
got a day's recording while we're there working, basically.
yeah. So it'll be almost 8 hours of recording, which we then hope to post online when we fast forward it to compress it to a few minutes. But what that means is it's a camcorder which might need repowering, and again, that's the reason we're using the criteria of a USB powered camcorder. I
Yeah.
think that covers everything.
Mm-hmm.